Even if you tried, you wouldn't understand it. Maybe something's missing inside of you. Just a bit of sugar to that heart.
What's up, Slayers? It's your girl Nami Slay, and welcome back to my channel where we discuss all things beauty and business. Today's video is going to be super exciting because we're going to be talking about one of my favorite hair topics: color. I love this. We're gonna be talking about color theory, and I'm gonna do this in at least a two-part series. We may end up running a little over that because there's so much information to cover. However, I do want you guys to get a better understanding of color. Don't let it scare you, and it'll help you maximize your income and help with your client retention in the salon as well. So before we jump into the meat and potatoes of this video, I feel it's important that we cover some basic vocabulary. That way when I start talking about specific things, you guys aren't like,
what? What's she talking about? I don't know what that is.
So we're gonna talk about basic vocabulary. The first term I want to define here is neutralize. The term neutralize basically means to make look more natural. We want it to be more aesthetically natural, like maybe this color is supposed to be here. Next term we're gonna cover is toning. This is a very important term because you need to understand what it really is. Contrary to popular mythology, toning does not refer to any one particular brand of color. It doesn't belong to any particular type of color, like demi, semi, all of that. Now, there is a preferred way to do it. However, the term toning means the act of adjusting the temperature and the shade of a particular color. It is a technique. It is not a product. It's a technique. The next term we're gonna cover is level system. This is important because you want to understand the scale in which we're working with. There's two types of level systems. You have the traditional system, which goes 1 through 10, from darkest to lightest, and then you have the American system, which goes 1 through 12. It sometimes stops at 11 depending on the brand that you're working with. For the purposes of today's video, we will be doing the traditional system because it is the more universal system. It's the system that most color lines use, and you can just infer the other two levels at level 10. The level system is the amount of light reflected from the hair. So if it's super bright, you're going to be higher on the level system. If the hair is darker, you're going to be lower on the level system. The last term that we are going to cover is dominant pigment. It's very important that you understand what a dominant pigment is because each dominant pigment has a level that it lives at, it runs that, it pays the bills. You need to know the address in which dominant pigments live on the level system. Another thing I want to touch on before we get in here is when I refer to toning, I want you to understand that when you are toning someone, you have to tone them at the level they are or darker. You cannot go up. If they are a level 7, you tone them at a 7 or a 6 or anything below, but you cannot tone them with an 8 because they're not there. Color does not lift color.
Ever.
It never happens, okay? Doesn't lift color. Now, we will talk about how if their hair is virgin and, you know, they've never had anything on it, you can get maybe 1 to 2 shades of lift out of them, but that is not the rule. We're not gonna even go into that because I'm not gonna confuse you. Color does not ever lift color. You have to tone them at the level they are or darker. So these terms go hand in hand. I want you guys to get a better understanding of what they are. If you have to, rewind back to this part once we get further along and revisit these vocabulary words so that way what we're getting ready to go into resonates. Okay, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video. First thing I feel like we need to cover is the basic color wheel. When I realized that the color wheel that they were referring to in hair school was the same color wheel I used in kindergarten, that was a game changer for me. I was like, really? Oh, this is gonna be a walk in the park. With the help of my son's art supplies, don't tell Lyric, I have taken the liberty to help and make some visual aids. If you are not familiar, This is a basic color wheel. This is the same wheel that you use when you are in kindergarten mixing up finger paint. This is the wheel right here, okay? I took the liberty of including only the primary and secondary colors because I don't want to confuse any beginners or overwhelm you guys with tertiary colors, all that other stuff. I'll get into that in a more advanced coloring class. However, this is your basic color wheel. The primary colors that cannot be manufactured are red, blue, and yellow. The next colors you have, which are colors that are mixed by combining these three colors in different ratios, you have orange, which is combined when you mixed yellow and red. You have purple or violet, if you fancy, which is combined when you mix red and blue. And then you have green, which is combined when you mix yellow and blue. Those are the primary and secondary colors that are the foundation of color theory. In order to make a specific color, you need to know if I mix equal parts of this and this, I'm going to get here. So familiarize yourself, Google the color wheel. Ooh, my arm's getting tired. So I have taken the liberty of writing the numbers on the level system that correlate to this dominant pigment. We're gonna go over the level system in just a minute. This is the traditional level system for hair color. It goes from 1 through 10. Level 1 is going to be the absolute darkest. You can think of this as your midnight black, your jet black, your super cold raven's hair black. Number 10 is going to be your palest blondes. I'm talking almost white color blonde. And I've also taken the liberty of coloring which colors correlate in there as well. In order to get to here, if you are here, you have to go through all of these levels first. Meet all of their dominant pigments first. You gotta pay the toll, I like to say. This little happy area that I drew a line in, I like to call that the blonde barrier reef. We'll talk about that in a minute when we get to the color wheel. Levels 1 through 5, those are gonna be your darkest, most highly pigmented areas. Levels 6 through 10, those are gonna be where you start to get lighter. You start to see more blonde. So now that we've gone over this level system and you have a visual representation of what it looks like, you can think of it like a ladder. We're gonna climb the rungs on the ladder. Now we're gonna go back to the color wheel and we're gonna talk about the dominant pigments that run each of these levels. This color wheel is going to be your best friend, okay? And the reason it's gonna be your best friend is because it is your roadmap. This is your GPS when you are doing hair coloring. Each pigment runs different levels on that level ladder, that level system that we talked about. And we're gonna talk about that now. So in houses 1 through 2, the color blue is the dominant pigment there. Now that's not to say that you can't have a level 10 in the blue house. What I'm referring to is the dominant pigment at that level. We'll talk about shading and tone and everything else in a second. The next color where the dominant pigment applies is violet. You can think of this as your beginning brunettes, your super deep browns. That's where this lives. It runs the house of 3 and 4 on the color system. So if you are a 3 or a 4, brown, your dominant pigment is going to be violet. It pays the bills in that house. The next house we're gonna talk about is house red. This is a very important house, okay? Very important house because this is where you have to go whether you're going forward or backwards. You gotta pay the toll and visit this house. Red rules the levels of 5 and 6. The reason I say you wanna get really familiar in here is because if you're dealing with brunettes, you need to know this level. If you're dealing with blondes, you damn sure need to know this level. To make this a little more clear, say for instance, I have a client who is a level 10 blonde. And she says, you know what, blonde just ain't for me. They don't have more fun. I ain't feeling this. I wanna be a level 3 brunette. I wanna be a rich, deep, chocolatey brunette. Like, oh, I want that. That's what I want. Really deep. If you take a level 3 and you put it on a level 10, you're gonna run the risk of it slipping off, it being muddy. The reason for that is the higher you go in the level system, the less pigment there is in the hair. So if I'm at a level 1, this is the most amount of pigment in the entire level system. This is your jet black hair. If I'm a level 10, this is your palest, ashiest blondes. There's not a lot of pigment in a level 10. If you try to just do a one-step process and you put a level 3 on a level 10, it's gonna slip off and you're only gonna see the base note, which is why these two colors are so important. And I'll talk about the green area in a minute. The reason it does not have a number associated with it is because it is not a naturally occurring pigment in hair. I don't care what anyone tells you, green is not a naturally occurring pigment in hair. However, that does not mean it is not important, because this is a very vital and necessary color on the scale. We'll get back to that in a minute. You can't go from a level 10, come around here to a level 3. It does not work that way. It's gonna slip off. Your client's gonna notice when they wash even if it looks good that day, when they wash their hair the first time, they're gonna notice, why does my hair look green? Why does it look like this? And that's because if you are going from here to here, you have to stop through here. This is a process called repigmentation. And repigmentation means you are walking a color back down the color scale ladder. You're going the opposite direction. Most people go up, but you have people that want to go back as well. In order to go back the correct way is a 2-part process. I like to tell clients, hey, don't look at your hair for the next couple hours because it's gonna be red, or sometimes it'll turn like that offish looking pink. The way that you walk this down is you color their hair with a red. You take the deepest red that you can get, like a level 5, level 6, you put that on their hair, you let it process fully. We are not toning, we're not rinsing this off. We're gonna let it process the entire time like it's a regular all over color. We're gonna rinse it off, we're gonna blow dry it out, and then we're gonna go in and put whatever color they're trying to get to. That process is gonna ensure that that color not only grabs the hair, but it holds on for dear life, okay? And that is why this house is so important. You wanna get familiar with Red's house. The next color we're gonna go into is orange. I like to call orange hair color purgatory. And the reason for that is, not all, but most of the time when you are doing a dark to light combination, you're gonna land somewhere in here. Hair color purgatory. And your client is going to have to live there for a few weeks to do this safely. Now, we'll talk about texture and how you can, tweak things and get away with, one session coloring it in the next video. But for the basics of this video, clients are gonna land right about in here. Now, most clients are not gonna wanna walk around with orange brassy hair. This isn't the 80s. We're not doing Aquanet hairspray, that bleach bottle blonde look anymore. The reason why the color wheel is so important is because when you are wanting to stay at a certain brightness, a certain level, but you don't wanna see the ugly dominant pigment that runs that house, you have to know what's called neutralizing. If you're trying to cancel something out, you have to go directly across on the color wheel. And I mean directly across on the color wheel. So if they are a level 8 orange, what you have to do is go across on the wheel from orange, and now you're back in blue's house. When it comes to color and color lines, the majority of color lines are going to list their blue base colors as an ash. So if you ever see ash or A, like an 8A, just know that that is a blue base. So if you have a color that has orange hair, you tone it with a blue base color. That is how you get out of hair purgatory. So the next color that we are going to cover is the color yellow. The color yellow is the happy area for a lot of blondes. This is the area where all of your pop colors come from, like your pastels, your metallics, that sort of thing. This is where that lives, okay? A lot of people will try to say, okay,
I want to color my hair, but I don't want to lighten it.
It doesn't work that way. I'll explain why in just a second. So what's the importance of lightening hair? Why is it important to understand why we do it? What's the purpose? Say for instance, you have a client that says,
I want my hair to be this fire red color, but I don't want to lighten my hair.
you politely tell them, I'm sorry, that's not possible. Please go see your psychiatric professional. No. What you do is you explain to them why that doesn't work. And to help with that, I want to demonstrate something to you. When you are trying to color hair, it is like you are coloring on a colored sheet of paper. So if their hair is really dark and they want something to be light, you have to lighten it out. And the reason for that is color does not lift color, ever. It never, ever, ever lifts color. If I put a red color on top of black hair, it's gonna eat it and laugh at me. Your client's hair color is this, okay? And they say, I want to be a nice, vibrant red. That's what I want. And I think you can do it. Just put it on top of my hair. Okay, watch this. This is what I hate too. I be in the grocery store, I see people who have done this to their hair, and I know exactly what they did. It's that muddy, murky looking color that's like, they colored their hair a few months ago? No, baby, they did that today. It does not show up because you can put it on there, and yes, the color is technically there. However, it cannot show through because the canvas that you used was so pigmented, you're not going to see it. It's gonna show up that muddy looking color, and it's not a cute look. You talk your client into saying, hey, let's lighten your hair. It's a double process so that this color will show up the way you want. We lighten their hair up. I'm gonna stay at level 6. Take that same color. See that? Now you can see it as opposed to not seeing it. This is why knowing the level system and color is so important, because you have to be able to explain it in layman terms to your clients why you are getting ready to do what you are getting ready to do to them. So let's get into the color wheel. Say for instance, you know, a new hair colorist is like, why is everything for blondes always got this purple tint to it? Why is that? First off, blonde is very expensive to maintain. And I always try to advise my clients of this up front because it is not a quick one and done. Platinum blonde is a lifestyle and it requires maintenance. The reason why blonde-based colors tend to have a purple tint to them is because purple is a cross from yellow, which is the dominant pigment in the blonde house, levels 9 through 10. You're trying to get a more natural look of a blonde. You neutralize it with whatever is directly across from each other on the wheel. That is why most blonde products have a purple tint to them, like shampoos, that sort of thing. Remember I told you we were gonna come back to this happy little greenhouse. The reason why green is so important is because you can use green to color correct mistakes. You can also counteract green when clients don't love themselves and they go and put box dye on their hair. Let's talk about box dye for a minute. Box dye is an atomic bomb to hair. Before I got into the industry years ago, I used to be like, why do hairstylists rag on box dye so much? It's convenient, it's right there. They just be wanting to make money and they, you know, don't want people to do their stuff at home. No, that's not true, because if we were all about money, we would tell you to go get that box dye, put it on your hair, and then charge you $100 an hour to correct it. You never want to use box dye on your hair or client's hair. I've seen stylists use box dye on client's hair and it just made me cringe on the inside. The reason why you don't want to do that is not because, you know, you want to get more money out of your clients. You want to, you know, no, you really want them to have healthy, vibrant hair. And box dye is an atomic bomb that destroys. It's like a seek and search mission. It destroys the hair. So box dye companies have made a living by making their product accessible to the masses because it is so caustic. It is so corrosive that it works on everyone's hair. You can take the kinkiest, coiliest, dense hair and the finest, silkiest, thinnest hair and put a box of box dye on it. It's going to attach to that hair like crazy glue in a bad way, like the Gorilla Glue girl. Even if you look up and you do a box dye color and it's like, oh, it's pretty today, wait until you start washing it. It's gonna start to turn green, it's gonna start to turn blue, especially if it's like a black box dye or a red box dye. Oh my God. It doesn't just stain the top of the hair. The cuticle, which are like little fish scales that open up to let color, moisture in. You got that outer layer, and then you have the cortex of the hair. Box dye is so caustic, it stains the cortex of the hair. So when you start to lift or lighten the hair that's still there, you're gonna see it. So you have to know that color wheel to be able to correct what you're seeing, because it's almost impossible to get box dye out. Now that you have a basic understanding of what box dye does, we're gonna get back into the color wheel. Okay, so green does not naturally occur in the hair. However, if you have a client that has processed their hair at home, or their hair processes in the salon and it for whatever reason turns a really weird color when you put color on it, you need to know that if you go across the street to Red's house and say, hey, can I borrow a couple sugar at whatever level they are, if they're a level 6 in the green, you say, hey, level 6, can I borrow a couple of your sugar? Then you can neutralize and make that a natural looking color. Or you can say, okay, I want to add more, and they want to be, something else. But that is how you neutralize that. It's very important that you understand the green and the blue house as well, because a lot of box dyes use blue and green bases. And when you start to lift, you start to try to pull that color off. Even if their color was black, if their color was purple, if it was red, you're gonna start to see the main base that rules that ugly box dye. So you have to know what's across from it to neutralize it out. Now that we've talked about neutralizing, we're gonna talk about intensification. Say for instance, you have a blonde who says, I want to be a really warm blonde. I don't want to be darker. I just want to be a really warm, sun-kissed type of blonde, and they are a level 9. What you're gonna do to intensify that, because you don't want to take them down to a level 8. They don't want to be darker, they just want to be warmer. So to tone and get that, we're going to take the dominant pigment of where they are and put more of that into their hair. Most of the time with color lines, yellow is referred to as gold or G. So you're gonna take whatever level they are and we're gonna put a G in their hair. And what that's gonna do is intensify the golden that they want to see without walking them down a level and making them darker. If, for instance, you have someone and they are, let's say, a level 5, and they're like, I see this red, but I really want it to be like a fire truck engine red, that sort of thing. You're gonna take more of the red pigment in R, which most lines R stands for red, and you're gonna apply that, and that's gonna intensify what they're seeing. So now you have a basic understanding of how intensification works as well. In conclusion, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this presentation. I'm going to do another video where we talk about developers, different color lines and techniques, and also how to apply certain products onto clients' hair based on texture and based on what they've done to their hair, like their lifestyle. So if you want to see more of my educational content, please hit that like and subscribe button. Also comment below. I love to talk to people. Let me know if you found this video helpful. If you have any other questions about color theory, or beauty in general, drop those comments below. I will respond, and let's get a conversation going. Until next time, peace, love, and namaste.
I'm somewhere in the middle.